welcome to everyone that's new. It's up to you if you want to introduce yourself or if you just want to go with the flow. I don't mind either way. There's not so many people. Just, yeah. For the £4 for the meetup, we have piggies. So if you want to just put that in there, that's fine. Thank you. Whoever hasn't done it yet. Since I haven't gotten any particular news or anything new that's going to be starting, I was going to go straight into the judgment topic for today. As I was talking to, and I forgot your name already, sorry? Stuart, thank you. As I was saying to Stuart, I really, when I was researching the judgment card, I came across to lots and lots and lots of information, and there's a lot of psychological sides to it as well when it comes up. And the reason I personally, and I'm speaking only for myself, find it difficult sometimes, is that because it's such a multi-layered card in terms of meanings. So whatever is around it also takes from those meanings itself. Because obviously we have limited time, so we can't do like, something 5-6 hours. I thought I'd keep it to the basic and then discuss it, as it says, discussion with you all and see what perspective we can get. This is just a general view from my handouts that you're getting. You're welcome to put your perspectives or write them down and give them back to me at the end, and I can always make it up, and then as I usually do, I'll post it up on the meetup, on the PDF, so you can have it for yourself. But I think I'm a bit clearer now on judgment, since I've been looking it up a bit more.
Who's taking the money, by the way?
In a piece. When I was looking at keywords or phrases, if you want, I found that many different places, many different people have different views. So some people can see it literal as being judged. You're doing something and you're being judged for it, literally. Or you're karmically being judged. For example, whereas with death, it's fairly final, with judgment, well, it's going to come anyway, but not necessarily. There's a window there for change, beginnings and changes. And like I was just saying, I feel it's a very karmic card together with justice. But I think the problem arises when you're looking at in readings. I mean, I don't know, are you guys generally using Celtic Cross for readings, or do you use your own spread?
What was the word, first one?
What spread do you use generally for?
I use a Golden Dawn.
Okay.
Yeah, by Alistair Crowley.
But would you? Yeah, I'm not an expert on the
you
topic.
don't know
He's the one.
Alistair Crowley was the guy who went very deep into it.
But because depending from what spread you use when you actually do the reading. So if you do a simple 3-card reading, for example, it might be a bit easier and quicker to get the meaning. Whereas if you do a bigger one, 10, 12, 15 cards, that's a bit more layered. So I was looking at meanings, and I'm thinking that it could be self-judging, judging yourself for something and perhaps not doing anything about it. Or you are being called into account for something that you have done or that is coming up for you, and that you can't really avoid, but you need to acknowledge. It's not as final as death, as I said. There's always room for improvement, but it's the reason why I think it's karmic is because the changes that are coming are sort of coming out from what you're putting out there. So you're doing something. Actions have consequences, generally speaking. Whatever decisions you make, I don't think nothing is ever set in stone. You make a decision, you set in motion certain energies, and those energies will then have consequences. So it could be anything from a crossroads, from a decision that you need to make, changes that you've been procrastinating about. So you may be called upon to review a situation in your life. It could be work, it could be a relationship, it could be spiritual, it could be your path. So when it comes up a lot, I mean, personally, I had, not anymore, but a few years ago, I had the death card coming up for me all the time. Now I know why. It made sense about 2 years later. But if this comes up for you all the time or in a reading, it could be that you're being called to pay attention to something that it's there and it's going to happen and it's going to change, but you're not quite seeing it yet. So my question there was, if you see it come up for you all the time and you're stumped as to what it's trying to tell you, it's trying to get you to review something in your life. So if I was judgment in terms of the card, and I'd ask you, what would you do? What would you say if I asked you to review? What would be your answer? And I'm asking you, by the way.
You've got to dig deep into your life, what you've done, and assess your life, and see what you're good at. It's a sort of deconditioning card in point of view of psychology. It also goes with finance as well and things. And it's quite a psychological card, which means change, but it's what you have, you've got what you've got to consider, how good it is in the past, what you've done for the future change.
What would you say? What would you say? Sorry, it's not. I just think it's not wrong. And there's hand up, Silva.
Thank you.
I mean, I don't know how many was left. Anyone else? Do you find it that it comes up a lot for you? Do you find it comes up in readings for other people? Do you find it difficult? Do you find that the question is asking you is a difficult one, or are you thinking that's one of the easiest cards in the deck?
Personally, I would say for me it's one of the easiest, because I think in the Crowley deck it's kind of straightforward. It's progress, it's change, rebirth. But that's only within that context of the Crowley deck. It has a very specific meaning in that philosophical structure. Yeah. When I get stomped is that I know that it means change, and I know that you've got to change something, but sometimes I get stomped into what you need to change. And since as most of you know, I'm a person that uses very short spreads. I'm generally 3 to 5 at the most. Sometimes it's not enough to get the clarification, but when I was researching into the card itself, I found so many layers and a lot of people giving it different ways. And I suppose you should go really with what feels right for you. Because also, in the Rider-Waite, as I was saying to Stuart before, in the Rider-Waite symbology, if you're looking at that deck, is one of the cards, if not the card, with the most religious symbology in it. Also, something interesting was, I've researched this before and I wanted to go deeper into it, but then it would have taken us onto a different set of discussion, was the angel that's in the judgment card, which generally people think is Gabriel, yeah. But then when you're looking it up, well, not really. I mean, yes and no, it could be not. Some people depict it as Michael, and then I got given by someone else when I was talking about this, but I haven't seen, and I don't know if Henry, can you help me with that one? The Enoch-Metatron connection. I couldn't find much about that one, but... I think Metatron is specifically the universe card, actually.
Because it's everywhere, isn't it?
Yeah, well, the Golden Dawn has specific cards for specific angels. They do put Michael as Judgment, because
yes.
Michael is the angel of fire, and Judgment is a big fiery card.
And also Michael is an archangel, whereas in the Bible, Gabriel is not an archangel. It's an angel. It's only seen in the Enochian tradition, I think, as an archangel.
All sorts of Grimoire traditions. They have. I think in Christianity they have this sort of secondary texts where that's where they get information of all the angels and stuff. And I think the magicians kind of nick that and make their own.
I tend to go with Gabriel, but I don't think it makes much of a difference in terms of a reading. I think it's more about the symbology of it and what the angels... I mean, Gabriel is a messenger, Michael is more like a protector in a sense.
Um,
Gabriel has the horn, and you've got the awakening, the clarion call. That's how I see the card, as an awakening.
yes, that's correct.
So
Yeah.
when you said about change, it's like you know what to change when this card comes up sometimes, because you're getting that insight.
If you're looking at it literally, you're quite right. He's blowing the trumpet as you were saying, hello, wake up.
Yeah.
You've got to wake up to this kind of call, to this kind of change.
But you also got the judgment aspects from Gabriel. It's judging the people, judging your life
Yes.
for you to ascend.
Because yes, in the picture you also have the people rising
That's
from
right,
the
so
dead.
it's
Yeah.
some type of judgment. Which really
You are
goes
being judged,
in-
essentially.
Yeah, you are being judged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Right.
in terms of change, it's a wake-up call in
It's
that
like
sense
to
that
change onto something else.
yes,
Yeah.
that's correct. Like transformation, if you
Yeah,
want.
transformation.
to use
That's it. Yeah.
yeah. And whereas with death, transformation is final, because death is not a very fast card, but it's final. With judgment, you can change it. I was looking at spiritual change. A lot of people, it can come up a lot in readings when people ask for spiritual guidance, because there is a need of a change of path. There is the need for you to maybe looking at what you're putting out there in the universe, if it's the right energy, because ultimately you tend to get back what you're putting out. So if you're following a spiritual path, it be anything really. I mean, I'm just saying in general.
Some people say it's the card of karma, and then others
Yes.
say the justice is more the card
I think
of
they
karma.
both are.
But
Actually.
they do sort of interchange a bit, don't they? And I think that can make it a bit confusing as well, with justice and judgment.
I think they both are karmic, but with justice, it's something that's coming, that was coming, but it hasn't changed. If I'm making any sense, sorry, I just trying to put it into words. It's in my head. Whereas with judgment, it's something that needs to change. If it makes any sense, you need to change something in order to transform. Justice is more like you've been waiting for an outcome on something that could even be spiritual, and you've taken steps towards it, and it's going to come for you karmically, eventually. And to me, judgment is more like you need to act on that for the change to happen. It might happen anyway, and you take, which I think that's what you don't want to do. If you get that card, the judgment card coming up for you a lot of the time, then you know that you need to take some action in order for this transformation to occur, because it's going to occur. It might take longer,
Yeah.
but then it's out of your hands, so you're not going to be able to control it. So, for example, the spiritual path, as I was saying, you could be pushed, nudged, into a certain direction. You're not listening. You're going in the other direction. Eventually, something will happen to shift the balance. From making any sense. One thing I was looking at. It's never actually in 30 years of reading. It's never happened to me. I've never drawn the death and judgment card together in a reading, ever. But I was curious to see what you guys think that combination would mean. Of course, you have to, forget about the whole layout of the spread. But if you were to say do a spiritual reading and you get death and judgment as the outcome, what would you say that is telling you? I've never ever drawn it, not together. In the same reading, yes, but not together.
Maybe when you got what you wanted and it's something you deserved, like karmic way.
Death and judgment together, like so you kind of
Yeah,
transform.
like you go to a point in life where you have got like you were saying that the justice is something that is you're going to get it anyway. It's something. It's a divine justice kind of thing. I don't know if you understand what
No,
I mean.
yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. So if you get the judgment card, because I took a course once and they spoke about the judgment card, and they said that when you go judgment, it's like that's it, you're away, you're very near to achieving what you want to achieve, So if you have it with the justice card, then that's it, you are there,
But I think also one of the differences is that with judgment, you can make the call if you want to. If you pay heed to the advice that you're being given, you are given, an opportunity to make the call. With death, I don't think you can. It's coming anyway, and then you're going to have to go through the phases of transformation to go back to the
Yeah.
to the next step. But with judgment, like Viv was saying,
Yeah.
you're being given a call. Hello, wake up, you've got to do something about this. Otherwise it's going to change and then you're going to go, oh, what am I going to do now?
So you've got a time where you can control it or make some choices.
I think so, because it's not a
Yeah.
fast card either.
Yeah.
I don't know much about astrology, so I didn't even go into that, because that would be something that I don't know, so there's no point in me delving onto that. If anyone has any insight on,
think
on the astrology of the card,
I
please.
don't have insight, but I did read it's Pluto,
Okay.
to do with the underworld and regeneration.
Actually, the judgment card is a water sign. No need to that.
Is it?
Yes, it's a water sign.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry.
So it's a water sign, so therefore there's spiritual aspects going on here. I mean, it's all water signs is up and down with emotions, you know, and it's really trying to get your emotion together.
Is this primarily emotion?
It's emotions, it's nearly all emotions and what you've done. For example, spiritualism is exploitation, in spiritualism, exploitation of spiritual ideas in a direction that have not before been appealing to you, and it's just, you've got to know more things. It's like getting geared up to change, you know what I mean, in the right way. And it's to do with logic rather than anything else. You know?
It's not. It's not inevitability. It's something that you can reason on, and then.
That's right.
Move
Yeah.
on,
And
yes.
it's, of course, self-appeasement is very big stuff on that. You know, it's how you've done what you've done in the past. You know, and how you can deal with it.
I guess it could be something that comes up for. I've had it a few times now as a day card, but like I said, it's not a card that I draw very often for myself, even though I've had plenty of changes. I guess it would be a card that would be if you are self-improving yourself,
Yes.
or going back, changing paths. You know, working on changing paths, working on changing jobs, working on changing a relationship. In relationship, I was looking at some of the general meanings. In relationships, sometimes a make or break. You are called to say, okay, this is the relationship I got. Do I stay? Do I go? I need to judge what I want in the long term, and what is going to come up in the long term. In work, it can be even literal, as I was saying at the beginning. You are being judged. You know, you are being. You could have your manager going, let me watch her for a bit. You know, because I'm not really.
Yeah, you've got to be very productive.
Yeah.
It's telling you to be productive because your life's, your working life is on the line.
Being aware that you are being watched, you
Yeah.
are being judged,
That's
and then
right.
if you're not aware of it, then it might come down to
That's
something
it.
negative,
Yeah, yeah.
and then they go, you know, you're not productive enough, as you
That's
say.
right. Yeah, yeah.
So now what we're going to do about it, that kind of thing. And in the same way, in a relationship, it could be that you've got to a point where the relationship is stagnant, or it needs to be reviewed, or it needs to be changed, or it needs to be let go of as well.
Because like to come in with the two, with the love card, the lover's card, see, with the judgment, you know, that's going to be good, you know what I mean? But you've got the other.
Yeah, that's how I was saying earlier, with depending on the reading, what you're drawing
Depends on
with
all
it.
the
Yeah,
rest of the
exactly.
stuff. Yeah, that's right.
So it's making decisions.
It's making
So
decisions,
make
that's what
choices.
you've got to do. Make a decision of self-appeasement before you launch out on it.
Mhm.
You've got to be steadfast in knowing what you're doing.
Because it's a new beginning, but it's not a beginning that is forced, like it could be with death. You have a choice up until a certain point. But after a certain point, I don't think the choice, in my opinion, I don't think the choice is no longer yours. By that I mean if you ignore it, if you ignore the call, if you ignore the trumpet, eventually the change is going to happen.
Yeah.
Unless you change something, and then you may see that in the reading you're not drawing that card anymore and it changes. But if you don't change it and you stay the same, then it becomes, okay, well then, you know, here you go, here's the change. It's no longer in your control, and you've got to get on with it.
So
Whereas,
that's what I said about deconditioning. You see, you've got to decondition yourself for the change. I mean, you've got to go away from the past and look at positive.
but I think you probably agree with, and most of the people don't like change, do they? They tend not to.
Some do,
Don't
some
mind
don't.
if we-
Some do, some don't, but generally speaking, especially if it's a big change to make, people get a bit,
Yeah.
not afraid, but maybe worried, or
card.
It's the unpredictable.
It's the unpredictable. Some people love the unpredictable and they might, you know,
I love it, yeah.
routines, say, and then they, if that gets messed up, they feel, and that's, I think that's the call of judgment.
I have the word in here, evolution, which I think kind of sums
Yeah.
it up
Oh,
as
that's a nice
well.
word.
Yeah,
Being
that
together
is
with it, yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Growth and-
Judgment sometimes it implies progress of
Yeah.
some sort.
Yeah.
Death just means it's gonna end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a door's closed, a
Yeah.
door's
Yeah,
closed
door's
in somewhere
closed.
for sure, and staying closed, yeah. Another door will open.
Death is always the beginning as well.
Yeah, another door will open, that door's shut.
It implies it, but it's not the thing itself. If that makes
Yeah.
sense. Death.
Yeah.
So, whilst judgment is definitely the rebirth.
Yeah, I see. Slight different
Yeah.
emphasis.
Yeah, the progress.
It's, they're not that
Less
dissimilar.
frightening.
They're
No.
not that similar.
No.
It's just that
No.
one, I feel, is more final.
Final, yeah.
And the other one, it's giving you the window of opportunity to change
Yeah.
things and reshape them as is best for you. Whereas with death, it's well, it can be. I suppose it can be that you are reshaping as well with death, but then you'd have to look at the context. I'll show you. I'll tell you a personal example. In last July, before I left my job, I went for a reading at a tarot festival, and I wanted to know about relationships because I just met someone new. So the poor lady is throwing the cards, and I can see the cards coming out.
When you know what they mean.
And then she was like, "I'm really sorry, but there is no relationship." And I'm like, "Yes, there is," because I just met someone. But it was all different cards.
Yeah.
So the context was a pentacle team, because obviously the focus of my life at the time was to leave a good job to go completely into the unknown, as you were saying, you know, the change, complete change. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. So that was my focus. Now the outcome of that, this was last July, I remember, was death. Forward up to now, I totally can see that. But in that case, it didn't mean anything, I think, because everything went actually well, and I did transition into the new job. But I think what death was telling me wasn't that something was going to end and I was going to end up worse off, or
something.
it was going to be a slow process of transformation from something that was very stable and well paid to something that was not stable, but I really like to do, and that it would need time. So yes, I think, if you can see where I'm coming from, even with death, you can have, it depends on the context of the reading, I
Yeah,
guess.
that's true.
So,
I agree with what you're saying. And to me, there's means of course what to change, and you just told us about the change.
Yeah. but it wasn't like a sudden change like tower, and then you had something else that was negative. And the lady, she did a really good reading for me, and she was saying, I think what that means is that you're going to slowly transition, which is true, into the new change, but that you're probably going to end up doing something else, which hasn't happened yet, but it's in there, it's in the back burner. So in that case, that made perfect sense, and that wasn't negative. That was just saying, hey girl, you're going through a very period of change,
Yeah.
and you've got to take the old and the new. So yes, it depends. But judgment, I think it's more of a call, like you were saying, karmically, to do something about something that is not quite working for you. It could be something that is not for your own good, perhaps, that you keep doing. It could even be, actually I'm thinking now, to people that fall into certain routines all the time. Same mistakes, repeat the same mistake all the time, and you need to change it. You fall in the same pattern, bad relationships, for example, or working for less than what you're worth, whatever you can think of. And it's telling you to break that pattern and make the change necessary to go back to the next step.
That's what I was talking about, conditioning disease.
Yeah.
Decondition or recondition, and stop the past coming through, and change your ways of thought.
And when we were saying about change earlier, that some people like it and some don't, I think it's easier for people that haven't got a problem with change, energetically that is, to move forward easier than people that actually get stuck on the same pattern. It could be anything silly, like living in the same place, just, the old saying, better the devil you know, and then getting stuck into that pattern. Whereas judgment is telling you, if you keep drawing it, it's telling you, no, you know, that's not good for you. It's actually hindering you rather than helping you. You need to get out of that and do something about it. If you don't, it will change. It might not change. It's not the tower. It won't change suddenly, but it will do eventually. So then you might not be in control of the change.
It's a purifying card. I think I would use that word.
It's purification.
Yeah. They were getting rid of things that don't work because it's because the card depicts the Book of Revelations and it's the destruction of the world. It's tearing down the old way of doing things.
But you are reborn.
Yeah.
So, but it's painful. It's not as painful as death, but it's going to be painful. Like all change is painful. Anytime you make a silly decision, like changing job or something silly, like kind of thing that, not seeing a friend because they maybe have wronged you. Anything that's from a big decision to a small decision. It's always painful because people generally, and I don't want to be too general, but they like to be comfortable. They don't like to step out of the comfort zone. And so judgment is telling you to. It's telling you to step out there. I'm curious also to know of experiences. I mean, my difficulties with the card is usually when I get with certain cards, but I would like also to hear from you, because now I've been talking for about too long. If you have any experiences that were either easy or difficult with a card, if there are any areas that you find more difficult, for example, spiritual readings or career readings or love readings, for my own benefit and yours as well, to just sort of share experiences, if you have any either insights on the cards or how has it helped you or not helped you, or you find it difficult and when it comes out you goes, oh God, what am I going to do now?
I tend to see it as a spiritual awakening myself because I use the way I look at the tarot, it's all spiritual underlying everything, but it does depend on the question, it depends on the context of the cards around it. So if there was a lot of sort of work-related cards around it, then it would be obviously to do with that field or whatever. But when I see the card, I do see it as a very spiritual card. But anything that makes you grow is spiritual
It's
in that
for
respect.
your
own evolution, as we said.
It's for your own good in the end.
Yeah, it is.
If you resist it though, what's going to happen?
You get more growing pains, but you still death still happens.
Death. No, yeah, you're
Still
right.
happens, but yeah.
Somehow, because then it's going to have to end it, and you're not going anywhere unless you change.
It was like, do you let the tooth rot or do you yank it out, kind of thing.
I'm like yanking out the word.
That's painful.
Amputation.
Generally speaking, for I think my personal experience, if I'm asking, what would happen if I do X, Y, Z, and the judgment card comes out, I usually take that as, okay, I should do it.
You see it as a confirmation card.
It's like this will help you develop. So,
As a day card is very difficult, or I do find it difficult, and I had it a couple of times lately. I pull a card every morning for myself, and judgment comes as a one day, just a daily card, and I'm like, okay, so either I've got to terminate something today, or to start it, or, but it's not very clear because it's telling you to make a decision, really. But as a daily card, it becomes a bit more confusing. So what I do usually is I tend to ask, what is it about, and then I'll pull another card. So at least I know if it's for work, then maybe I'll have to change something there. Because otherwise it's just, okay, I know that I've got to do something about something, but I don't know what. But I guess that's the thing with the daily cards, so.
When you mention daily cards, now I remember, when I have drawn it as a daily card, it happened as, like, I think of something in a different way, or I get like a new idea. It's that kind
That as well.
That kind of rebirth, like it's like a revelation almost.
So I think the beauty of it is that we don't all think tarot in the same way. I think that would be so boring when, if you just follow the one book, and you need to also, it's like, my card today was the Ace of Swords, and to me now that makes perfect sense. That was a cat. but then for others it could be something totally different. So that's why I like to hear you guys as well. So,
Yeah. Go ahead, yeah.
any experiences that you can remember with the judgment card, or that is stuck in your mind for whatever reason, or anything that you think is useful to add to this?
Yeah, I don't have a personal story about the judgment card because it hasn't come up for me much.
No,
But
no.
apparently the lovers and death and judgment, they're all linked because they form like a triad. So it's like love, like
Yeah.
like a column. So it's like love, death, and resurrection.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And I think the devil is in it somewhere as
I
well.
was going to say the devil.
Yeah.
Because the imagery is very similar.
The
but
devil
that's-
changed the lovers, and then the
Yeah.
lovers sets
I
themselves.
mean, they're linked in the sense they're actually if you put them in
you
three
like
rows
the
of
cards,
7,
Yeah.
they're actually in a column, so they're linked that way. But obviously there's other associations as well.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, because...
That's interesting because it's like, yeah, again, it's rebirth and beginning, but it can be painful, but then you come out the other side. Very simple way to say it. Just rebirth yourself. But for example, if you... Okay, I don't like the Celtic cross as a spread, but say if you were to do the Celtic cross, and someone is asking you a question about a relationship. Where's my relationship heading? And you get judgment as an outcome. The final outcome, that is card 10, not the other one. But, yeah. To me, that would be like, what? Because I know that that person would have to make a decision about that particular relationship, but it's not telling me what. Now, of course, you can go and look at the other cards as well, but because you're looking at card 10 and that's the final outcome, so it's telling you whatever you build up the story to, it's going to take you to judgment. So whatever the cards beforehand are going to take you there, they're going to take you to judgment. So then A, it's up to you, it's in your hands. B, you're going to need to make a decision, but what would you say?
Or do you say
Good
you're going
question.
to lead to a great awakening?
Yeah.
Yeah, but if I'm coming to you and I'm asking you,
They
where's
want
my
an outcome.
relationship going?
Yeah.
And you pull whatever cards, and then the outcome is judgment.
When you look at the other cards though, the clues.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Whatever
Yeah.
story you're looking at, you build up from there. So
It's the final.
you could, for example, say,
It's not going to tell you.
you could say, for example, you got 3 of Swords crossed by Queen of Cups, so there's been some hurt. And the root of the matter could be the 4 of Swords, you're not talking, or there's no communication. And you're going up and see that the past was also maybe 5 of Swords, where you've had some issues. And a possible future could be judgment as the outcome. Could be 4 of Cups, where you're not seeing something. And then you go into the other cards and say you're leading up to the outcome, right? So you know that this person's had problems, they've had problems before, there may be some heartache, there may be some miscommunication there, and the outcome is judgment.
Would you tell them they need to do some more soul searching, or would you just turn over a couple more cards next to it? Because that's what I would do, because if I'm really unsure, I turn over a couple of cards, and it usually gives me something.
Yeah,
exactly.
I don't know. Look,
Or that
looking
they
at the-
know the
It
answer.
might not be a change. I mean, it could be the same thing, but you look at it in a different way.
Yes, that's yeah,
And
a
look
different
at
approach.
your internal sort of logic and what you've done and what aspects you've achieved for your life, you know, and certain positive aspects that you could use. You know,
Yeah, like looking at it from a different approach, a
that's
different
totally
perspective.
different approach. Yeah. So it's not really a change, but three of swords, really, that's a sudden change. I mean, and you've got other aspects you've got to look at it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I was just making an example, but to make it easier for you to kind of picture it. But me personally, I would do what she does, which would be just draw another card and have a look at where do I need to make that particular, how do I have to approach it. For example, if the card is a cup, then it might be that I need to be more open and emotionally open to that person. If it's a sword, I need to be more communicative.
Yeah.
If it's a pentacle, I'd probably say that we need to sit down and look at the practical
situation in the relationship. And if it was a once, I probably would say that I need to be more proactive with it. But I probably would pull another card, yeah, that's just me.
Yeah, no,
I think I'd interpret that as that relationship would be, it would develop you for the better. Most likely that it's probably be something that's very new for you, a new type of relationship for you that you've probably never had before. It's almost like,
See, I see the Three of Swords as karmic as well, because I see the Three of Swords a lot about healing and healing past issues. So it could be that you're going from a point where you maybe are both hurting for whatever reason, or not relating to each other. It's funny. And then going on to Judgment, where you're going to be better for it. It's going to bring you good changes, positive changes. I think what I'm trying to get at is that it's multi-layered, that there is so much to it. If it helps you draw a card, by all means do. I mean, I do. Sorry. I do, but sometimes it's clearer. It could be clearer if you could have like an emotional theme in the spread, and then you know that the person needs to work on emotional change and maybe talk more about their feelings, or being more open with each other. I guess it depends, but
or taking things to the next level, which is evolution. It's all forward motion.
Is that Chiro's?
No, this was a really useful book that came with some cards I won here in a competition,
Okay.
Tarot of the
Oh,
Shade. Yeah, but she
I
has.
haven't got that one.
Yeah, she has some really. I brought it because she goes into it quite deeply. But she's put things like ascension, evolution, purification, awakening, expansion, beholding. So that's that point of clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could even be a ha-ha moment where you go,
Absolutely.
oh gosh,
Yeah.
I didn't see this, I need to do this, this is so much better for me, and then a burden has been
Light
lifted.
bulb
Yeah.
coming on.
So it's like enlightenment.
Yes.
And enlightenment comes from sometimes what you've done before. You've got this, this way of doing things. So I'm thinking psychological terms. That's it. And you've got motivation from what you've done. You've been successful. How you do that?
And you can get recognition with it as well,
Yes, the recognition of it.
because then the balance is sort of restored. Once you make that decision, the balance is restored, and then you can go on and get the recognition with it.
Would you mind closing the window? 'Cause we're
Sure,
cold.
sure.
Thank you.
Close that one a bit as well.
And she's cool.
It's a card of enlightenment over a lot. You're enlightened on something else.
You're right.
Be back in a minute.
So, if you were to make a sentence with it, with the card itself, and you would, you were there to say judgment is, what would you say?
I'd say a call to awakening. That's my first thing, and then I will take it from there. Yeah. Wake up. Yeah.
What else?
I think that's a popular one.
Everyone,
It's sort of caption.
yeah.
Yeah, it's the best way to sum it up in like one word, I would say.
Yeah, that's the point, that judgment
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
like awakening or enlightenment or rebirth.
But it's interesting, no one just said judgment and being judged, which is, I think,
You can be.
people might initially see it as that because of the word, but we know that there's much more to
Well,
it.
There's also the religious connotation with judgment. As Stuart was pointing out earlier, you are being judged and then you are reborn in a different state. So
Deconditioning.
you can be judged. I guess it depends.
It's more
We're looking at this in general, but if you're looking at if you're doing a face-to-face reading with someone that's, for example, very Catholic, then they might take the aspect of it because for them, judgment is being judged. Or someone that is perhaps on a different path would say, well, that's a spiritual card, I feel that's karmic for me, and that is meaning that I need to change something in order to follow my path.
Usually you have to change yourself though, which is what it says
Yes,
here.
actions
To
have
move to the new
consequences.
level.
And
Changing yourself.
Yeah.
Or changing the way you think.
so I know, but it's. I think that's why it's challenging as well, because it asks you to look inside. And I think it's easier to. It's easier for you to probably get to the point of changing job because you've had enough. It might take you a bit of time, and judgment comes up, and you go, okay, I'll look at it again, and I'm going to go for something different. Then I am wrong in doing this. It's me that's wrong. It's not the other people. I'm bringing upon myself.
Yeah.
You know, people
Yeah.
treat me this way because I am letting them.
Yeah.
And by letting them do that, I need to bring change. It's not easy. It's more like a.
Well, if they don't like the job, it's how do they not like the job, and go deep in the psychological ways of how they're thinking of it. And you could say, well, what about this, what about that? It's even changed and some altering their concepts.
Yeah, sometimes it's possible to change even within the same job,
So I mean,
depending what you're doing.
it's mental state of,
Yeah.
it's called conditioning in psychology.
So sometimes it is possible to change. Sometimes you get to the point where you're in a job, whatever that is, that you're feeling drained all the time, and you know it's not paid enough, and you're struggling, and you're working 1,001 hours a week. But
Of course, you've got fixations as well. You see people got fixations that you could drag out and make them look at something else in a different way, or a different path.
sometimes, and yes, that, and sometimes it's just simply it's better the devil you know, because it's easier to sit with
Sometimes.
It's sit with some people. It's easier to sit with what they actually are comfortable with than contemplate the idea of completely overhauling everything, making that change, and changing the energies completely. Because ultimately, whatever time it takes, it would be upsetting, or in a sense, to the routine.
It's destabilising.
It's
isn't it?
destabilising.
That
There's no stability there.
Stressful and anxiety. Yeah.
Or change takes work. I mean,
Sorry?
or change takes work, even if it's positive. I mean,
Yes.
using
There's a lot of
Maria's
there's a lot of adjustment.
It took me a
like
year and a half to
moving
leave my
house.
job.
Yeah.
You might really want to
Move
move
work,
house,
yeah.
but it's still a lot of effort to,
Yeah.
to
It
do.
took me a year and a half to leave
It's
my
very
job.
stressful.
So.
thing.
I mean, Viv is
Oh.
one of the few people that know, because I've talked to you about
Yes.
the job before.
Yeah.
But even moving house, I want to move house now, but you've got to be realistic there. You've got to make the change over time. You can't just walk out. I mean,
We could.
you could, but
You have ways then of thinking differently about where you are, so pick up the advantages of where you are, look at the possibilities. It's possibilism, and therefore it's a different way around.
and sometimes you're forced into change as well, because sometimes it
Sometimes you are
happens.
forced to change, you've got no choice.
When you haven't changed something that needed changing, it's like you said, it can come at you.
I know, because in my case, I got 2 wake-up calls now
Yeah.
in the last 2 weeks, and they were massive and very upheavally.
Yeah.
But I knew that both of them were like saying, hey, you're not doing anything. There was nothing, I don't draw judgment for me much at the moment, but then again, I'm only pretty much just doing myself a daily card. Most of the readings I do are for others. But both of the calls were like, oh, hold on a minute, I'm not doing nothing. I'm not doing anything about this. I need to do something. So yes, as you said, you can look at the way
That's the
in where you are,
yeah.
but at the same time you can also start looking at ways on how to change it to your own advantage, and it might take a while. I don't think it's a fast card anyway, judgment, neither is death. So-
The tower's the fastest,
Tower's
isn't
the
it?
fastest.
Quick
No
change.
jet card, is it?
So you need to look at it from a personal point of view. If you start getting personal calls that are not actually tarot related, you start seeing things happening in work or in a relationship, and people are giving you hints or wake-up calls, you start thinking, well, maybe I need to change something.
So the trouble is, if you're psychic, it's even worse, because you're reading people, and you know what people are like. You see, that's why I'm
Yeah.
psychic, I read, I know exactly what's happening. And if you don't like what's happening in a lot of areas, then you've got to know.
Yes.
Yeah. It's
I
worse
agree.
for psychic.
It's very personal, isn't it? Because it depends your situation. So you could have
Again, it's personal, yeah.
you could have a judgment card coming up for someone that's quite gentle. You could just ask them to shift direction a little bit, or it could be like, you've been in that negative situation now for ages. You need to get out. Yes, I agree with you. So it depends, and it also depends. And if you are sensitive, that's even worse because you
I'm terrible. I just,
get conditioned by the environment. So
Yes, yeah.
so that becomes even difficult. I'm totally with you on that one because I'm there now.
Pick up everything,
Yes.
yeah.
So okay, I've talked enough. I think. Can anyone else?
I'd like to ask. You said the judgment card is water sign. Where did you get that? Because that's the first I've heard.
Oh, one of the things, but I can imagine it is the water, it's very emotional.
Yeah, that
But out of which you can get positive aspects.
Okay.
I don't know.
Which water sign?
I can't remember. It's water.
I don't know this. I don't know anything about astrology in terms of apart from what the signs are and the basics and my chart. That's about it. That's as far as I go with astrology. So I don't know. Not Pluto. The Pluto connection. That's
Yeah.
one I knew. I think the Death card as well is correct.
The death card is Scorpio.
Yeah.
So it's Pluto, Lord
Yeah.
Scorpio.
The other one. The other as well.
Yeah.
So that's water as well.
Yes.
And what about lovers? I'm interested.
Love is a
Gemini.
Gemini.
Yeah.
One of the few that I remember actually. So I was like, yeah, I got that one.
Can I ask a question? It's
Yeah.
not related to judgment,
Yeah.
but it's related to why don't you like the Celtic ones?
Because I like short spreads.
Is it too convoluted? Or?
Yeah, I don't like. I like it short and simple, pretty much with everything. So I tend to do 3 cards, 5 cards sometimes, or 3 cards and a clarifier if I'm not sure what I'm talking about, or
Yeah.
the cards are being confusing.
It's good for an overview, but if someone's asking you a question, they want clarification, don't they? They don't necessarily need the overview.
I mean, I do. Don't get me wrong. I do use other spreads,
Yeah.
but I've
That's not your
never.
go-to.
I've never particularly liked the Celtic cross as such. It's just
It's too short.
I don't think so.
short.
Yes.
But it's good to
I usually use 3 cards. That's
I use 15. See,
okay.
there's one in the golden the golden dawn spread by Alison Barry, who went mad. You've got one card that's reflecting on another card, you see, and therefore you use that aspect, and then it leads on to other aspects.
I think. Well, I guess we all do it.
It's the way you
Yeah,
read,
we all do it differently. I think I'm known for being short and sweet. But that's not to say that I won't draw any more cards if I have 3. You know, if I feel I need clarification, I'll do draw more. But it's like, I was doing a reading yesterday for a friend, and she was asking me about the practical question, and 3 cards were Hanged Man, High Priestess. I can't remember. Hanged Man, High Priestess, Ace of Wands, and this was about practical monetary question, and you know I clarified the High Priestess because
Sorry, what question was that?
it was practical. It was about material matters,
Yeah.
and so I clarified the High Priestess because I said, okay, you have to look inwards, you have to look into what you want to do,
Was intuition?
and the clarifier was the 2 of Swords. So to me that said, you don't need to know, just look and do what you feel is right. So that was 3 cards.
She's reading the judgments as well, has got that.
Yes. So that was a 3 card. But then again, I know a lot of people use the Celtic cross. Some people use their own spreads. You use your own 15 cards. I know Henry used you also. So there's no right or wrong way. It's just that I'm speaking for myself, really. Yeah, it's just how I do it. At the moment, I'm doing Lenormand. I'm learning Lenormand, which is.
What is that? Doing it every day.
Huh?
You're doing it every day.
I'm
posting
doing
on
it.
Facebook.
I've done 3 cards alone now. But anyway, to go back to judgment. Sorry? Lenormand. It's a totally different system.
Yeah, like 6 of Swords.
Totally different system.
How do you spell it?
Lenormand. It's you probably come across it before.
If you say system, different
So there's
system.
no.
What do you mean?
It's not tarot, it's not a
All right.
tarot.
It's not
Yeah, it's a completely different system. It's
Same.
really
Okay.
just straightforward. You say what you see. It's 36 cards, and you say what you say.
For me, it's actually-
So it's not like-
I can't use it myself.
Yeah. Okay. So let me just finish up, and then I'll. Yeah.
Some of the symbols.
Nice. Sorry,
Some of the
because
symbols. are-
we're kind of going all over the place.
Yeah.
If anyone else has got any question or anything else, otherwise I'll leave you to practice if you want to practice with readings. I don't know what time it is, but it's 5 almost, so that's fine. So if anyone has anything else, otherwise I can leave you to get on with practice if you want. No? 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 Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.